know this is not a ramble per se, but sort of a brief thoughts video on the Oscars. I didn't actually watch the Oscars. I just sort of watched people tweet about it while playing Uncharted 4, which is, that franchise is currently my newest obsession, and I just didn't feel like watching the Oscars because it's really just the same old, and I think the ceremonies are just so, it's just a case of, to me, it's just one big show. You know, the Oscars really just one big trade show. It isn't like some great decider on what is a quality film or what isn't. It's just, you know, a little gold man, and it's just an excuse to put a sexy winner of 5 Oscars blurb on a DVD or Blu-ray cover. So I don't really put too much credence in the Academy Awards, but it's always a fun guessing game for me. Although, in the case of animation, it's mostly not a guessing game because it's obvious that Zootopia was going to win because the Academy voters don't even watch all the movies. I mean, if you don't believe me, just read all the leaked ballots from all the anonymous voters and staff members and everything. Their ignorance is just through the roof, and especially when it comes to animation. So it was obvious Zootopia was going to win because that's the one the voters took their kids to at the beginning of the year, and they pretty much made up their mind from there. So, or either that or they didn't watch any of them, but they assumed that Zootopia, being the most popular one and the highest grossing of the nominees, they give it the award. That being said, I'm very, very happy that Zootopia won the award because Walt Disney Animation Studios, I feel, made one of their best films yet. Not just one of their best modern films or even post-Walt films, just one of their best. I reviewed it and gushed about it many times, but I just really loved the world building of that picture. I really loved the script. It was a very sharp script. It was paced so perfectly. Maybe not in the first 5 minutes, but it was paced perfectly almost everywhere else. Visually, it was spectacular. Again, the world building and how they used the predator-prey dichotomy to sort of tell this Aesopian fable. And it was just very, you know, some people weren't too big on that, but I actually thought it was pretty subtle and very well handled, and it was a very universal message to me. But it was integrated into the storyline in a way where it actually really worked. And I just love how it's like kind of a multi-genre film. It's like a police procedural 48-hour story, it's an adventure comedy, and it's also like kind of a political conspiracy film. All this in a Disney Animation Studios film. And to me, this is like the height of the John Lasseter run Walt Disney Animation Studios. I'm very, very glad that they, you know, it's as if all the movies that they were making in the past couple of years is kind of like build up to this feature. You know, all the Tangleds, Wreck-It Ralphs, you know, Frozen's, you know, all those movies, it seems like it was just build up to this one big, grand, ambitious epic, and it paid off so beautifully with critics and with audiences. And Zootopia's victory, I think, is what made 2006, this past year, such a bright year for animation. It was great to see a movie, a mainstream one no less, that was so ambitious really succeed, because that could have gone south under different circumstances. That could have been a movie that was actually really good, but didn't do good because maybe marketing didn't sell it too well, and it would just be one of those cult Disney films like Emperor's New Groove or Treasure Planet, where it's actually good but nobody saw it, and thus it's kind of swept under the rug in some way. So I'm glad that Zootopia was the big hit that it was, and I feel that its Oscar win was totally deserved. That being said, I would have been very happy if Kubo and the Two Strings walked away with it too, because Laika is a great studio, and it's them getting an Oscar? That's long overdue. Maybe in 2018. Their currently Untitled movie is set to open in the summer of that year. Well, actually, the late spring, technically, but maybe that will win the Oscar in 2018. I just hope Laika wins a little gold man soon. Again, the Oscars mean nothing, but it would be nice if they got a little recognition. All the viewers, you know, who tune into ABC to watch the Oscars, who probably would have never heard of a Laika movie, hear about it because it got an award. But again, that all depends on if the Academy watches it or not. And I highly doubt, I mean, I don't like to do this sort of Nostradamus Chicken Little thing, but I highly doubt it wins in 2018 because there's a lot of potentially strong mainstream candidates on the horizon. But who knows, stranger things have happened. I would have also been okay with one of the 2 independent features taking it home, particularly My Life as a Zucchini, but there's no chance in hell that those things win, because again, the Academy doesn't even watch half of the films, and probably wouldn't even bother with something like My Life as a Zucchini. Movies like those are given very limited runs in LA theaters, you know, just to make them eligible for the Oscar season before the year comes to a close. And who the heck went to those? Probably nobody. Did they even watch their screeners? Probably not. The rules are so jumbled and messed up that there's no way something like Zucchini or Red Turtle would have ever won. I feel that Moana was the weakest of the bunch while still being a very good movie, if not a great movie. But I'm glad that Zootopia won, because Moana, to me, great as it was another 90s Disney animated movie. It had the big musical numbers. It had, the big climax at the end. It had, a spunky young heroine. It had a lot of the 90s Disney ingredients, not to mention it was directed by Ron Clements and John Musker, who pretty much started Disney's renaissance. Not with Little Mermaid, but with The Great Mouse Detective. Sorry, folks. Actually, I'm kind of kidding there. I think The Little Mermaid definitely started the Renaissance, but Great Mouse Detective was kind of like the launch pad for that Renaissance rocket to take off. So Ron Clements and John Musker directed Great Mouse Detective. It was a success in 1986, not a blockbuster, but it was enough to make its small budget back and sort of prove to the new suits at the time that, hey, animation should not be phased out, nor should it really be sidelined. So animation, Ron Clements and John Musker, they're what I like to call the Disney Dream Team. Great as Moana was, I felt that it was just another 90s Disney movie, and one that had a lot of their familiar elements in them. In the music category, How Far I'll Go was one of the nominees. Now, I believe that even though it was a good song, I feel that there were other songs in Moana that were much stronger. I particularly liked Song of Our Ancestors / I Am Moana. Very emotional song, and it kind of hit home for me, and especially that, that part of the storyline involving a particular character, that really got, like any great Disney animated movie, it really, really, hit me hard, in the feels, as they say. I feel that song should have been up for Best Song, but no, they went with the safe choice. They went with the I Want song that, defined a lot of the 90s movies. And I felt that that was just such a weak choice. Interestingly enough, Can't Stop the Feeling, Justin Timberlake's pop song for Trolls, was up too. Now, it's not a bad song, but really, Best Song material when that slot could have gone to another Moana song? How do I feel about the Moana song losing to La La Land's song? I'm not too fazed, honestly. I've actually, as of this recording, haven't seen La La Land. Although I am planning on seeing it, the parts that I've seen of it, I really, really like. And I'm sure that I'll love it because it looks like a very, classic homage. It looks like an homage to classic Hollywood musicals, and the way it's shot and the way it's composed. It looks like really good stuff, and it looks like something that I would really, really like. It might be one of those movies I might blind buy if I don't get the chance to see it in the theaters, because it's still playing in my area. I just haven't had the time to see it. It was also very nice to see Kubo and the Two Strings get nominated for Best Visual Effects. That's been the first time since The Nightmare Before Christmas, released in 1993, an animated feature was nominated for Best Visual Effects. It should have won, honestly, but instead it went to Jon Favreau's pretty much animated Jungle Book remake. And I'm not big on Disney's live-action / photoreal animation remakes of their animated classics. To me, it's essentially animation assimilation, basically animation being told to be exactly like live action, and thus kind of defeating the purpose of, classic caricature animation. So I'm very bummed that the Jungle Book, despite how impressive it was visually, won the award. It should have gone to Kubo, and if they couldn't give it to an animated movie, they should have given it to Doctor Strange. Come on, those psychedelic visuals were something else. I will take that over photoreal recreations of classic traditional animation. But that's just me. That's the only thing that kind of miffed me about this ceremony. And that and How Far I'll Go being the nominated song from Moana. It should have been Song of the Ancestors, really. Other than that, I'm happy to see all the good work pay off, and I'm glad that an animated movie at least got a nomination in a category that live action and photoreal animation typically dominates. Of course, the Oscars are probably never going to see animation that knows it's not real. They're probably never going to see it as art. They're probably never going to see it as legitimate filmmaking. And if they do, then they won't see it as worthy of Best Picture or anything else because, well, actors. And actors, from what I hear, control a lot of, the Academy and all the voting branches and such. And the idea of the actor not being on screen and the animator also being the actor, well, that's kind of a threat to them. So don't hold your breath. I don't expect any great animated movie in the next couple of years to be nominated for Best Picture. I mean, after Up and Toy Story 3, I think it's just been sort of a one and done thing. Somebody in the Academy probably got in a hissy fit over inferior cartoons being nominated. So, yeah, we still have a very long way to go, but Zootopia, glad it won. Kubo, very happy it was nominated for VFX. It was robbed, I believe, and I think that they should have nominated another song from the Moana soundtrack. Other than that, Finding Dory, I'm a little upset that that didn't get nominated, but in a year of such strong movies and just 5 slots to fill, it was probably not going to make it to begin with. But I would have liked to have seen Finding Dory get some kind of nod, because it's a movie about living with a disability that's invisible, or one that people might not be able to detect, which is exactly what I have. have. Speaking of which, I also feel that Life Animated should have won Best Documentary, but that lost as well. Bummer. And it would have been nice to see a movie like that, a movie that kind of challenges casual ableism and such, get some kind of a boost, especially in these times now where, people like to rip apart folk who have the disability that I have. But that's another rant for another day.